Well, howdy, folks. Welcome to Mower Mike's Garage. I hope you're excited because we are about to get weird with chainsaws. Yes, sir. What have we got here? We got ourselves a bright orange made in Sweden, Husqvarna 450 Rancher chainsaw. This is Dr. Bob's old chainsaw, and she has been rode hard and put up wet, if you know what I mean. This sucker has cut down forests of trees out around Paradise, Texas. And it's just plain worn out. I pulled all my magic tricks I had on it. I went ahead and replaced the carburetor, the spark plug, did this, that, and the other. And come to find out, it's just got piss poor compression. So I told Dr. Bob, I was like, Doc Bob, the chainsaw's done. She's dead. And he had a little bit of a mental breakdown. He's getting all emotional and pissy about it. So I went on Amazon, and I'll be danged if I did not find a whole new top end of that engine for $33. I don't understand what's going on, but it looks like a whole cylinder head, a whole jug, the whole cylinder, and a little tiny mini chainsaw piston. We got piston rings, we got spark plug, we got all the bearings, all the stuff for $33. So that makes no sense to me. So what we're gonna do, we're just gonna have some fun. I'm gonna strap on these Chinese parts to this Swedish Husqvarna, and we're gonna see what happens. Now I do have a warning for you before everybody says you did this wrong, you did that wrong in your video. Just to clarify, I have never done this before. I have never done this on any chainsaw. So we're all gonna be doing it for the first time. So I'm sure I'm gonna screw up a lot of things, but hey, whatever, that's what YouTube's for. So let's go ahead and dive in and start ripping her apart. Well, our first step in this process is going to be getting off this old muffler. As you can see, she's lived in the back of a Dodge diesel for a while, and it is full of Texas mud dauber nest. So let's see if we can get our 5mm Allen wrench in there. Oh my gosh. Bob is not big on salt maintenance. I don't know how we're gonna get that sucker out. Did that break it? I guess that did. Okay. So that broke that one. Let's see if we can. In Texas, if you got a whole summer that's outside, I'll tell you what, a dirt diver is gonna find her way in there. I'm gonna have to get me a little cleaning and break that sucker loose. Let me come back. Yep, we got an extreme close-up. I started trying to clean this thing out, and I just want to get it on camera of whatever comes out of here in case it. Oh yeah, look at that. There was some actual wasp down in there. Give this other guy a little shot. The little B12 always does her good. And now let's see if we can't. Yep, that one's definitely loose. That one, I'm sure there's a better tool for this, and you should probably not use channel locks on your new fancy. There we go. My gosh, that is ridiculous. All right. All right, gang, I'm gonna have to find a different tool because them suckers are rusted up in there. All right, I was able to put enough plier force on her to loosen it up. So hopefully getting off the muffler was the hardest part of this whole video, because if not, it's gonna be like a 2-hour video. All right, there we go. We got the old rusty muffler off. Take that aside and just ignore it for a while, because that muffler definitely was frustrating. So, all right, so now we gotta look here. What we wanna do next, we wanna go ahead and rip the handle off. And what these are 4mm screws. You got one down here. And I like using the old DeWalt mini impact thingamabobber. It just makes working on chainsaws an absolute pleasure. Now this sucker, it's wrapped all the way around, so you got like 12 screws on here. That's where we'll get her off. No pun intended on that one. All right, we got that sucker off. And what we're gonna do next, we're going to go from the top, and we're gonna take off the top and get off the carburetor. That's what we're gonna do. All right, so in order to get this carburetor off, you've got your throttle cable coming up here, and it's this little tiny nub in here, and I got a pick, try to pull it back. See if I can get that sucker out of there. Come on. You gotta open it. There we go. All right, so that is officially off of there. And then you've got a little breather tube down on the bottom. Take that sucker off. And what else we got hanging on here? Maybe it's just a pull. Hey, it's the Dutch, you just gotta yank it. All right, and these two, as you can see, will come off together. Hey, look at that. We got our carburetor off. And then we can look down in here. All right, let's stop for a second. So what we've got right now, we've got the carburetor off and we got the muffler off. So we're starting to get some access. So let me do a little more studying and see what we have to do next. Okay, so next we got to start taking apart the outside frame of this in order to get down here to the cylinder. So you can see I'm missing a lot of bolts, but 4mm bolts goes on the starter assembly. And then that, oh gosh, this stuff is so gross. As you can see, Bob just has never cleaned this thing in his whole life. And then you've got your, what is that, your ignition coil. You got to take that sucker off. As you can see, she is bolted straight to that cylinder also. Boom, boom. Try to keep your bolts with the same item that you took off. That's going to enable you not to get all these little bolts mixed up, because you do have to put them together at some point, which is a lot less fun. All right, so we got that sucker. Whoa, that whole thing came off. That's interesting. So this is hooked to that kill thing earlier. So we got that off, and we're gonna come around. We're gonna keep taking off some bolts, because next we got to get this whole assembly back here off. Let's see, what else have we got hanging on? I think it's fairly well off. There. Let's look underneath it. As you can see, I am no professional. I found another bolt, another 4mm. We probably need to take that sucker off. Uh-oh. There you go. Had me worried for just a second. All right, we got that sucker off. Gosh, these things are so gnarly. Just dirty, 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 dirty girl. Get this one off. Yeah, you can see Bob's got this thing all bent out of shape. So let me do a little more research and finagling on this thing, see if we can get her off. All right, folks, I've been tinkering with this cover a little bit. What I found out is that you have to fully remove these two screws here. You'll see the one in the back has a little nub on it. And then this one here, which my buddy destroyed, whatever that thing is. Pull that out. And then, look at that. She starts coming out. And you've got two lines right here. Those are your fuel lines. Make sure to pull those out. And then I've got something else hanging on here. What is that? Got some sort of wire situation. Oh, that's your throttle cable. Yep, you're gonna have to well, I told you I've never done this before. Make sure that throttle cable's unhooked from the little thing there, and there we go. We got that sucker out. What this is gonna allow us to do is to get underneath here, because that engine is actually bolted through these bolts underneath. So let's go through. We're gonna make sure we got everything else unhooked. Nah, forget it. Let's go ahead and undo the bolts. I wanna see what happens. So we got 4 bolts here. Let's zoom on in. If you can get past some of the grease. This thing's an absolute, oh, it's a disaster. All right, let me get my fancy tool. There we go. Let's see, is that a 4? Nope, that is definitely not a 4. So we're gonna go with a 5. Let's see if we can get these 4 undone. Look at that. The DeWalt rips it every time. So this whole thing is kind of wild. It's like an engine wrapped in plastic pieces, in grease, in dirt, and bolts. All right, well, how many we got? We got one more left. As you can see, my method of doing this is absolutely winging it and take stuff apart until we get things apart. All right, you can see we got the bolts on done, but what? It's wiggling. We got a wiggler. If I can get this sucker out of oh, holy cow. She popped out. We've actually got the whole piece undone. So let me clean things up a little bit, and we're going to take a closer look at what I'm working with here. All right, we are looking at the two engines here. You can see the one on the right is the stock one. It is horribly dirty. So what I'm going to do, there's 4 bolts here I'm going to undo, and we're just going to swap the pieces over to the new motor and see how this works. Again, I am giving this whole project 50-50. Well, maybe like a 30-70 of it actually working. But hey, it's parts are moving, tools are ripping, and things are happening though. We're having a good time. So you just take this off, I guess. Wiggle, no. This is, all right, that's your intake right there. And then you can see it's horribly dirty. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean it before I put this on a new engine. But as you see here, it looks like all the bolt patterns are the same. So the Chinese did a fantastic job of copying this little engine. All right, so let me get this cleaned up, and we're gonna go ahead and do a little more research here on this situation here. As you can see, it's an absolute dirty mess, which is not what you want when you're building an engine. Stay with me. All right, folks, now that I got them together, I want you to notice when you look at your old one here, look at those 2 little gaskets right there at the bottom of your cylinder. These are very, very important because they seal the cylinder to the rest of the engine. I guess these are like little engine gaskets, and the kit does not come with new ones. So take them out and clean them. But when you clean them with WD-40 because that gets them clean. If you use carb cleaner or something acidic on these, it changes the size of the actual gaskets. I have had lots of issues in the past. Do not use carb cleaner cleaning rubber gaskets. And just go ahead and clean them up to your best of your ability. You can see this is not exactly what we call a high horsepower clean engine build room. All right, and then just press them down in there like so. Yep, come on. You can see this actually seals to the little whatever that thing is. And we may want to put a little silicone or glue in there to hold it down, and that way when we press them down, they'll stay in there. But that one seems pretty tight. And then just go ahead and do that to the other one. Just pry them out. Now, this one actually had to go into the engine, and I found it on the piece of plastic. And you might just have to make it a little bit stuck up in there. But try your best to keep them. So I'm going to swap this one over, and then we're going to look at the intake. All right, let's get her prepped up and ready for the big dance. We've got our new cylinder here, and as you see, I have reused the old little rubber engine gaskets right here. I did put a dab of super glue underneath each corner just to make sure it stays on there as I slide her on down. Now, there are some pretty cheap new ones of these. I'll put a list below on Amazon. You should probably get some new ones, but you know, squeaky tight wad squeaky pants didn't. Another thing, I thought I might have to actually hone this cylinder, but if we can get a close-up on the inside, as you can see, it came from the Chinese factory with honing marks. So I think we're good. It's actually got a little crosshatch on it, which is a good thing. You want your cylinders honed, which is essentially scuffing up the cylinder beforehand to make sure the piston ring seals up in there. Now next, all right, here's our, let's see if we can get them straightened out. And I got all sorts of little parts on here. So here's our old one. Now this got this little weird springy thing here with a 4mm bolt. We're gonna unbolt that, put that in the same spot on the new one, which should be right there. So we're gonna just swap that over. And then also on the new one, I went ahead and cleaned off our intake. What I used is, look at this, Purple Power stuff. I don't know, some guy sent me all this stuff for free off YouTube, but it seemed to work. I just put it in a pot and let it sit in there, and I got all the grime and gunk. You really want to make sure this is extra clean because this is going to be sucking into the engine, especially in the holes. And all it does, it slides right on there. You can see there's a couple little nipples. I think we call them nipples right there, and it slides in these two holes. So then just slide it on there, throw your 4 bolts in there. Yeah, we should be good to go. So next, let's go over here to the dirty chainsaw and see if we can squeeze the piston out of her. All right, before we do anything else, let's go ahead and check out the innards of said Swedish chainsaw. Yes, what have we got here? Well, coming down through here, so we've got the cylinder off. This here is the crankshaft, a couple bearings right here, and then you got a connecting rod to the piston. Crankshaft comes through here, runs the clutch, which runs the chain, and then it runs the electrical generator thingamabobber here. All right, so as you look down in here, you can see, first of all, we got a problem. We got a couple problems. When you build engines, you want it to be really clean, and we got dirts everywhere down in there. And then the next problem, look at that. This little oil seal right here, it has slid off, and I cannot, for the life of me, get that sucker off. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this whole thing out, because I went on the Amazon, and for like $28, I got a whole new crankshaft, connecting rod, oil seals, another 20 bucks, got a new clutch. So I did not plan on originally doing this, but now we are pregnant on this situation. So we're going to let it rip, as we say. And I'm just gonna gut this whole thing. Hang on there, hang on to your hats. So first thing we need to do is take the crankshaft out. In order to do that, you have to spin this to the right while holding the crankshaft. And there is a special little tool. So what this does, it slides in there, and then you can actually put a socket on that end. Look at that, that's pretty slick. And then we're gonna put, oh yeah, we're gonna put some American-made DeWalt bright yellow on there. And we're gonna see if this sucker comes off. So go ahead and hang on to her. I hope this works. And remember, this is reverse threaded, so we're gonna go right. Ow! That definitely hurts my hand. Whoa! Yeah, don't put your hand in there, because don't want to break any fingers. You can see right there, we zip that sucker right on off. Come on. All right. And interesting. So I've never done this before, so I'm not quite sure what I'm doing. But I can see we got that side off, and I assume this side, we got a little 1/2-inch nut. I'm hoping this is left-hand threaded. Oh yeah, that one was much, much easier. So let's see if we can take that sucker off. Come on, we're on TV. Shoot. All right, so let's see, wiggle, wiggle. Sometimes a wiggling situation works. All right. Sometimes you just need like a hammer. Let's see, what do I got around here? I got a big screwdriver. Try to wedge in there. There we go. I'm assuming it's just that one nut. You guys watching this are like, what is this guy doing? And I just don't have any answers for you right now. How in the world does that thing come off? All right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and pause this video so I can do a little research on how to take this little flywheel situation off. Hang on. Hi, gang. I have been struggling getting off the flywheel here, so I brought out 2 of my favorite tools. First of all, I got this awesome foot-long punch and a little ball peen hammer. She's done a lot. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to punch this thing off. Again, this is probably not the official way to do it, but we're gonna give it a shot. Hey! That actually worked. You can see it is pressed on there, and it's got a little key. Hopefully I didn't lose the little tiny key. Yeah, so this thing here is keyed to go onto the crankshaft. So it should just slide on out as long as I didn't break nothing. Come on, come on. Be nice to me. All right, you gotta angle the crankshaft just right. All right, she's, oh. Yeah, those bearings do not feel good at all. You can see right here, this is where we pushed it off. So this is good. All right, so I got everything apart. Now at this point, you want to go ahead and organize what you got. And also, I'm gonna go through and clean everything because I've got all the metal, all the bearings, everything out of here. So I should be able to give it a good cleaning That way we can start fresh. So when you come back, I'm gonna have some clean parts and we'll throw this thing together and see if it works. All right, so the next part here, I gotta admit, I was not gonna film it because it is pretty redneck. What we're gonna do is that we're going to pressure wash the insides of the chainsaw with my Generac 3000 PSI butt-kicking pressure washer. Now, is this a good idea? Probably not. So let me know if you see any parts flying, because I might need those later putting this thing together. Now I'm filming this because this might be the highlight of the whole video, especially if this Swedish chainsaw doesn't start. So let's go ahead and get started. First of all, if you're going to do this, make sure to get some safety gear. Goggles are key, and boots. Yes, I have shot a hole in my foot with the pressure washer. They threatened to take my foot off, so be careful. Steel toe boots are always a must. So let's go ahead and get her started, and we're going to clean her up here. All right. All right, we're losing pressure here. Come on, give me pressure. There we go. Oh, yeah. Actually, folks, that made very quick work of that job. There is a ton of grime on that. So we're gonna go ahead and get these back over to my table and see if I can put this chainsaw back together with all my parts from Shanghai. Stay with me. All right, now that we got it totally stripped down, we're gonna start from the crankshaft up and rebuild this thing. So let's look at our new crankshaft. Now this is the new crankshaft I got for $27 out of China. You can see it looks just like the old one. One difference, it's got sealed bearings. The old one had exposed bearings like that, so I don't know if that matters or not. But I went ahead and took this, and then I started looking at the pistons. Now the pistons, I measured them. They are the same width, but when I start trying to put the new piston on the connecting rod, it doesn't let you slide down because this connecting rod, I found out, is just a little thicker than the stock one. Now I thought maybe I could use the stock piston because it does fit down on there, but this stock piston, as you can see, it's just burned up. There's a lot of crust there in that ring landing. I think that's what you call it. So what we're gonna do, since I really don't have anything invested in this saw, I'm just gonna take a grinder. We're gonna try to grind down this connecting journal, I think that's what they call it, and see if we can grind enough to get her to slide on in there and take off a little bit of Chinese steel. So let's go over and throw this thing in a vise and get the grinder warmed up. All right, I have to apologize to everybody. I decided against getting out my huge DeWalt angle grinder with a metal bit to start grinding these little tiny engine parts. What I went with instead is just a hand file. I use this one on lawnmowers. And I just went for about 10 minutes, just filing the inside of these little bushings in here. Filed those two, and then filed a little bit on the ends of this. And look what happened. This metal is so soft, it just files away, and now she fits on there like a glove. Now, you want to file enough that it fits loosely. You don't want any resistance when this thing's moving, because any resistance is going to screw up that engine and cause it to blow up. So next, what are we going to do? We are going to install the piston. Now, remember, when this goes on, when it slides in here, the open area with the big spinning part is going to have the tapered shaft with that key in there. So it's going to slide like that, which means on top of here there's an arrow, which means that arrow goes to the front of the engine, so it's going to look like that, right? Okay. All right, so before we do anything, you want to make sure this is super clean. So I just take some cleaner, clean everything out, because we've got a lot of filing and all that type of stuff in there. Clean off this journal. Oh, Try not to drop your engine bearing. All right. Oh, geez, Louise. That sucks when you drop bearings. Hang on, let me find that little sucker. All right, getting these little wrist pins in here has been an absolute bear, but I think I got a method figured out. So what I did to make it work is place the wrist pin in there like so, and then that little indention right there, you can see it in the piston. Use that with a pick, a real sharp pick, and then hold this down. Let's see if I can get it to work. Then as you hold it down, you use that and then wedge it in there. Oh my gosh, it worked. Look at that. And then it just slides in there and make sure it's in there. All right, so we got both wrist pins on. You can see it's a little loose. Uh-oh. I forgot this bearing. Let me take this all apart again. All right. Well, that was a screw up. So let's reassemble this. Now what this is, a little needle bearing that goes inside that journal. So I like to put a little Simply Lube on her. Make sure she's nice and lubed up. And then this slides into here, like so. And then this slides, make sure you got the piston lined up the right direction. Arrow to the front, like so. Then, okay, come on. Make sure that hole's lined up there. And then your rod should slide right through there. But again, make sure you got lots of lubrication in that sucker. She is going to be moving fast if this actually works with all these Chinese parts. We're going to have a half Swedish saw, half Chinese saw when we're into this thing, which maybe it'll work out because Dr. Bob is half Chinese and he might be half Swedish, so could be a win-win. Look at that. Oh man, that slides in so freaking tight. Those Chinese parts work. They just need a little filing action. So all right, so now we got it put together, and I'm going to reinstall those dang wrist pins, and then we're going to put her in the chainsaw. So hopefully we'll get this thing going. All right, after all that, let's go ahead and put this crankshaft and piston into the base of the engine. Now before I start, I just want to warn you again, I've never done this. I've never filed internal engine parts, especially on a chainsaw. I have never installed wrist pins. I've never done any of that. So I know I'm growing confidence, but we do have a lot of lube. So I think lube is what's gonna make up for my lack of experience. So go ahead and put lots of lube. Just, you know, whatever you got. I like the Max Tough Royal Purple engine building lube, but any two-stroke oil will probably work. Also on these things, the little oil caps, we're gonna need to slide those on, but before you do, because they're gonna be rotating right there on that little journal, make sure to lube her up. Again, lube, lube, lube. Especially on the inside of that sucker. There we go. And then on the other side, go ahead and make sure we got lots of lube here. I like using the word lube because my wife hates it. So anytime we pass a Jiffy Lube, you gotta say it. All right, so we got it. Now we're going to install it. Now when you install it, I like to install it with the, the weight pushing up. And both of these guys, make sure your tapered end is out the big side. And let's go ahead and you just slide it in there like so. Come on. Now, some of these engines, there's special like presses and stuff for these oil seals, but on this one, it just said place inside the engine case. So I think that's all we do. And as you see, it fit really nice up inside there. And then you just make sure everything's loose and spinning. It's a little tight because these seals are brand new, but everything's really, really smooth. And make sure that wiggles back and forth. All right, folks, I think we're good, but don't forget about your piston ring. Very, very important. Just go ahead and slide it over the top, make sure it lands within there. All right, we've got one crankshaft assembled. Now, next we're going to install the actual cylinder. So let me figure out how to do that first, and then I'll show you. That just sounds so wrong. Oh, buddy, yeah, we are about to start installing the engine. So let's go ahead and prep the cylinder to go on the piston. Now, a couple of things. First, make sure everything is really clean. Go ahead and hit this with some carb cleaner in the cylinder on the piston. Also, go ahead and lube her up. Lube her up with some assembly lube or even some two-stroke oil. Make sure to make the sides all slippery. Now, before we install the cylinder, something I have learned from my struggles this afternoon is that when you install the piston ring, look at that. See that little indentation on the piston? That is where the piston ring gap goes. So you can squeeze it. Let me show you guys. So you squeeze it closed right there. Now, if you go out here, it won't allow you to push it all the way through. That's because that's where that gap is designed to go. So make sure that little knob is lined up in your gap. Now next we're gonna go ahead and make a homespun piston ring clamp. So hang on. All right, so next we're gonna slide the cylinder down over the piston. Now, this has been a bit more of a challenge than I originally figured. I know I said I'd make a home-built piston ring compressor, so I did what everybody does, and I went on the YouTube and tried all the tricks. I cut the end of the cock bottle. I tried a hose clamp. Folks, I could not get anything to work. So what I did, I just went online and got a little two-stroke ring compressor. It works perfect. All you do is slide it around there. So I'm going to show you how to do it. So first, again, make sure everything's lubed, including the inside of the ring compressor to help it slide down. Put it over the top of the ring just so it barely holds it. And look in there, make sure it's all compressed. And then what you do, you hold it as it slides down. And it's just kind of a light hold. There you go. You've got to do this over and over to make sure that ring really stays compressed in there. There it goes. All right. Slide it again over there. Now, something that may help is to rotate that piston back up, give you a little room. Pull this sucker out. Come on. Again, this is much harder with a one wing. All right, so we got it in there. And then just go ahead and slide it all the way down. When you slide it down, make sure it's flush with right there. As you can see right there, we are not flush yet, but we're getting there. Come on. So something's banging this thing up. So let me go ahead and All right, let me do a little more research, but that is how you slide it down. And after that, what you do is you put these bolts in the bottom at 11 foot-pounds. Oh my gosh, what is holding this thing up? There it goes. All right, so you can see there, we got a good seal right there. And then I'm gonna go ahead and put these bolts down underneath there. All you do is you put them back where they came from at 11 foot-pounds. And then we're gonna put the rest of this thing back together. So this is quite the task here. We're essentially building a Chinese-Swedish saw. So stay with me, we'll get her done. All right, so next what we're gonna do, we're going to install the flywheel. Now this guy, remember, there's a little key inside the flywheel itself. So make sure when you go around, you're gonna feel it when it slides on there. Up, there it is. And then when it slides on there, it gets a little deeper. And then just put your nut on and tighten that one. It says 25 to 30 nm, so nanometers, I don't know. So go ahead and tighten that on, and I'm gonna read the book and figure out how to put the rest of this thing back together. Well, I could not leave you hanging because I don't want you all confused trying to install this handle. It is a bit tricky, so let me go through it real quick. On the front, you can see we've got the spring right there. Long bolt goes through there, bolts in. Right here, you've got a rubber gasket, the little rubber round thing, and a bolt. Now remember, you're gonna have one bolt that's got a smooth end. That is that bolt there because it slides through the rubber gasket. Then you've got two holes right here. Those are going to be to bolt on your handle. Those are gonna be your two shorter screws. And now let's come around top. Oh, she's looking good. All right, when you feed the handle on, just make sure you line up all the different things through the holes. You can see right there in the first hole closer to the engine, there's gonna be the throttle. Make sure to feed that through there, and then you've got your two fuel lines coming through here, like so. So next I'm going to, what are we gonna do next? We're gonna bolt on the handle, then the carburetor, and then strap the rest together. All right, hang with me. We got one more clip before we light it up. I just wanna be clear on putting this thing back together, specifically the ignition coil. As you can see here, it lines up with two bolts right there. And then what you do, you're gonna go ahead and spin your flywheel around till the magnets line up with this guy here. And it says to put a gap in there. Now there's a special tool for the gap. For me, I just use a card, like a business card usually is a pretty good gap. So that way, because you want a little tiny air gap between there, so it sends the signal to make the spark. Now on here, you're gonna have one ground right behind that wire there, as you can see. And these wires go up along this corner, they go down, and then they're gonna hook into underneath here. So you have to pull this off. It's got two little nubs, and it hooks right there. Now I know you're looking at that carburetor like, dude, why don't we talk about this carburetor? Yes, that is the most complicated carburetor I have ever installed, and it deserves its own video. So I'm gonna make a whole separate video on how to install that carburetor. It is a complete pain in the butt, but I think I got it down. One more note, I had this little springy thing on the wrong side. It is not on the ignition coil side, it bolts on the other side. It's just a little tiny bolt. So with that, we're gonna go ahead and strap the rest of this sucker back together. I say she's looking pretty sharp with all of her new Chinese crafted parts. So let's see what happens. Well, all right, we got the Husqvarna put back together, and now we're gonna try to start it. I've got an issue. I've only got one arm. So how do you start a chainsaw with one arm? I've been doing a lot of research on it. What I'm gonna try is a drill. So I've got a 13mm bit I'm gonna put right here on the flywheel bolt to turn it. Now to turn it, I'm gonna put it on the left side, and I've got a little ratcheting deal on here, so hopefully I don't break my hand. So is this dumb and dangerous? Yes, on both counts. But screw it. I've asked my buddies to come over before, and I'm just tired of asking for favors. So we're gonna try it out. So give her about 6 pumps. Choke on. All right, let's see what happens. Well, we gotta put this thing on drill setting first of all. Man, this is not smart. A lot of things can go wrong here, though. Well, that's not working. Let's crank her up in high gear here. Whoa, we had a hit. All right, I'm not giving up yet, folks. Well, that sure as hell didn't work. It took the bolt off. So there's no guarantees what I have done to this chainsaw will actually fix it. I will tell you it does have compression. I do not know if it'll start. So with that, anyways, I hope you enjoyed it. We got to see the inside of a chainsaw motor and have a little fun. So with that, Mower Mike's out. I swear next time we'll have a more informative video. Later.